Well, I don't know if I'm going to need glasses or not. Let's see. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Very happy to see you. I know Florida, New York, and it's a beautiful area, as you were saying. What can you say when you have met the one for whom God himself is not enough? Being with Meher Baba is not about spirituality, even though spirituality can be derived from him. It is not just about truth, even though truth and rightness flow from him. Being with Meher Baba, God help me, is not even merely about love, even though love is the very reason for being with him. For a person to seek truth is to repeatedly encounter lies and falseness. For a person to seek spirituality is to divide life into the spiritual and the unspiritual. To even seek for love and to be loving is to experience frustration every day. To know Meher Baba is to have life's whole meaning all at once, all the time, as everything falls into the love play with the man who is not only the divine master and the eternal beloved, not only the heavenly Father and also the living Christ, not only the one real friend, perfect companion, and exemplar man. He is who he is without even saying a word. You are with him and you are captivated and you know everything you will ever need to know. Then everything you will do or not do, think or not think, succeed or fail at, will all fall into the relationship one can have with this man who is most simply a man and also not merely a man at all. He is the one we have always wanted to meet and the human being we have always wanted to become. People can, if they want to, dispute whether Meher Baba is who he says he is, the ancient one, the God-man come again. But arguments of that kind are ultimately vain. He is mine and I am his. And to paraphrase Baba himself, if Meher Baba is not God, then God is not worthy of being God. Okay. Forgive me, please. Okay. Listen, my friends, the human soul is calling. It is yearning, it is crying out, and there are no words for what it wants. In every language of man, we are mute, but the cry goes on, and the call goes out nonetheless. Our silent yearning is reaching out, seeking to join with the silent, loving call of the living Christ, the beautiful one. Once we realize that everything we have ever done is wrong, every thought, every word, every deed, with almost no exception in every life, what is there left for us? We must finally hear his lovely voice and yearn to join him in his silent song. What comfort is culture? What hope is humanity when everything we do eventually leads to isolation? Everything we have ever wanted and so much more is blazing inside him like a billion suns. It's the miracle of miracles that he clads himself in form and walks among us, a man amongst men, slowly melting us out of the ice age we have frozen ourselves in. He is the voice, he is the song, he is the light we have wanted all along to become. And now, as he walks by our side, he helps us to know we are all part of him. no longer trapped in our muteness or enslaved by our useless notions of how things should be. I'm going to share a story of my second visit to India back in 1977. This was October of 77. And I couldn't wait to go back. And like most people, getting there or getting back there is an adventure and a story in and of itself, and that'll be for another time. But I have an especially fond memory of arriving in Meherabad, my first day there. Those of you who have been, I think most of you have been, I was in a rickshaw, and it comes on to that little gravelly pathway in front of old Mandali Hall down in Lower Meherabad. And the rickshaw crunches to a stop, and Padre is sitting in a chair, leaning against the wall. And he sees me, or he doesn't see me, he sees the rickshaw pull up. And the sun is blazing, and it's brilliantly light. And he drops his chair down so that he can squint and look over at the rickshaw, and he's leaning forward, looking at the rickshaw to see who's popping out. And when I stepped out of the rickshaw, this is 1977, so I'm 25 years old now. And when I stepped out of the rickshaw, Padre slapped his hands on his thighs and goes, "Ha!" like that. And I am so startled. And he get out of his chair and he starts walking very swiftly towards me. And he grabbed me in this tight bear hug. And it was the most remarkable hug I had ever had in my life up until that time. And I was just so startled that he would even remember me, let alone be happy to see me. And I was thinking, maybe he's just so surprised that I came back. But I guess he must have been a little fond of me as well, because I sure was very fond of him. But that welcome back was just one of the most remarkable moments in my life. Baba, I am a poor man, and only your love feels like wealth to me. I am so very sick that only your touch can cool my fever, calm my thoughts. I am a man of far too many words, and only your silence can bring me contentment and conviction. I was a lost and desperate man when you came. I had lived what seemed to be life, had dug my own grave in it, and was waiting to die. Since you've brought me out of death and out of life, I have had so much joy at your hand. But you never relieved me of even a drop of this desperation, only turned it all towards yourself. So if anyone were to ask me to say what it is I feel for you, even love would be a poor, poor word. My Lord, how can I get lost in songs of old when you stand here before me? Not just dressed in beauty, you are beauty itself. There is no song for what you are, and even beauty cannot keep up with the loveliness of your face or the benevolence of your form. My beloved, how can I dwell on poems of the past, even of yesterday's, when you stand here beside me? No rhythm, no tempo, no well-defined lyric is any match for the uncanny movement of your hand in mine, and for the friendship beyond compare you bestow on me and on all. Oh, Baba, how can I see anything but you in everyone I see when you reside here within me? I feel like the last person, the last heart, the last life you would choose to inhabit. But here you are, smiling in glory. I am somehow still alive, and you are inside me in a way I could never have imagined, more alive than life itself. We're all old now, aren't we? We're older than most of the Mandali were when we first met them. When we were younger, we followed always the big sound. By the time you came, we had followed one sound after another, and you just pulled aside all that sound as if it were no more than a curtain and entered our world with your silence. Whatever each one of us might have thought about love, we found that all the love and war all comes from you. Baba, you are like everyone, but there is no one like you. You look just like us, but when you look at us, you penetrate our secret hearts, and then our hearts seem expanded until they're beating right below the skin all over, so that your touch of love is greeted with love. And we can finally grasp with our hearts the ununderstandable. Baba, you are like everyone, but there is no one like you. You ride with us in our cars and walk with us on our streets, but it seems that everywhere, everything is going to you. We are not mystics, Baba, but you make us feel your reality behind all these forms and love you all the more. Baba, you are like everyone, but no one is like you. You sit with us in our kitchens and die with us in our beds, and people somehow don't seem like people anymore, but something else. And we don't understand exactly what we all are anymore. But it's you, Baba. It's you. You are like everyone, Baba, but there is no one like you. I would like to share a story that Adi Kayarani told me of his young life with Baba. I think this took place, if not in the 20s, then in the very early 30s. It was the women, Mehera and the women first lived in the old post office building, which none of us got to see. It was on the other side of the railroad tracks towards Baba's Samadhi. And that's gone now. And then Baba moved Mehera and the women to the east room of the water tank building up on Mehrabad Hill. So the women lived in the east room there, and they lived a very poor life, just like the men, but the men knew nothing about the women's life. And not only did they live a very simple and poor life, they also didn't have the adventures that the men did with Baba. They lived a very quiet, secluded life. And aside from the usual maintenance aspects of life, cooking, eating, washing, cleaning, blah, blah, it's all that stuff. They would also do things, they would make things for Baba for when he would visit them. They would cut up old saris and make things from the cloth. They would, anything that they could get their hands on. And of course, anything they needed from the bazaar, they would send down a little list on a small chit of paper to the men so that whoever was shopping in the bazaar would pick up their needs and bring it up the hill for them. So one day, Adi was in receipt of one of these chits of paper brought down by one of the women who acted as a go-between between the women and the men. And Adi's looking at this paper and he's thinking about Mehera, whom he hasn't seen in a long time. And he says, what does this woman want now? And of course, he feels a tap on his shoulder and standing right behind him is Baba. And so Adi turns around and Baba says, what are you thinking? And like everybody would say to such a question, nothing, Baba, nothing. I wasn't thinking anything. And Baba said, no, what were you thinking? So Adi had to divulge what he was thinking. And Baba said to him, you have no idea who Mehera is to me, and who she is in my work. If Mehera was standing in front of me right now, and I said to her, Mehera, for my work, you have to die right now, she would die right there. And the implication I got from Adi telling me this story was not that Mehera would take a knife to herself and commit suicide, but that she would simply relinquish her hold on her life, which is something that is not possible. Even saints cannot do that. Perfect master, the avatar, could probably do that, but it's not something anybody can do. And yet Mehera had this capacity to do anything for Baba, even something like that, to just die, to just relinquish the hold on her life force. And Adi told me that in that instant, he knew who Mehera was, at least to some degree, and who she meant, what she meant to Baba, and who she was to Baba, and who she is in some way, So that was a thrilling story when Adi decided to share that with me. Your silence is so much the most beautiful part of everything I hear. It's amazing that I wish so much to hear your voice. Not the voice you use to break your silence, but the voice you used in the beginning, when you spoke to those who did not yet know you are the avatar. The voice you used when you sang as a young man, your hair disheveled, your clothes in rags, your heart already nothing but a great white fire. I can see you now, transfixed, the Indian dust on your pants, on your feet, your voice filled with such fire and tenderness, such love and subjugation that all who heard you were carried not just to God's feet, but straight into his heart. Even now, I hear the sound of that voice in your silence. All my life, I have sung the harmonies, first to the ballads of this world, and then to your song, your silent song. These harmonies are so limber, they sometimes can startle as they complement your tune, but when you pause, I just get lost in mid-phrase, and I wish I could have the strength to sing the melody of your love and not just depend upon it to dance my harmonies around. I wish I could sing your melody with you, Baba, and I wish I could not just know you now as your garden comes to full flower, but be there at the beginning when the seed beds weren't even laid out yet. It was just you, so young, so beautiful, your voice so extraordinary, so transforming of all who heard, so human. There are billions of people in this world, and you love each one of them more than they could ever love themselves. You silently love them and constantly sustain them, helping each one from the center of their being. Even the saints don't know how you do this, pervading each and upholding all. So many people have the most wonderful qualities as you silently infuse them with selflessness and with the strength to live it. Then in the midst of all this life, you reveal yourself in the hearts of a few, those you've impelled to love you in this life. I know that among them are many people of quality, but mostly, Lord, you have come among the riffraff, those in the fringes that struggle in this world. And if we are honest with ourselves, most of us are far more raff than riff. But these people, of all the people in this world, are immersed in you and you in them. Amid all the choices they have in this world, they are only comfortable when they are thinking about you, and that seems to be all day and all night. Of all the things they could ponder or speak, the one constant comfort of their unsure lives is saying your name all day and all night. Lord of all hosts, what a thing it is to sit with you, with your lovers, especially when you yourself are sitting among us. Not just the most dearly beloved of this and of all time, but the greatest lover of all, sitting as a lover among lovers. You filling our love with more and more love so that our joy of adoring you is something more than joy, something more than Eden, something more than love and life itself. You silently fill all in the room as your being emanates from you and flows through us back to you in one unbroken current, like the movement of waters within the ocean itself. Are we with you or within you, or both at the same time? We don't know and we don't care, since all that matters is you, you, you. Who could describe such a thing when even to experience it is a bafflement to those around you, intoxicating without dizziness, informing without giving vocabulary. We are perhaps the most base of all beings, and yet your name, the endless balm of your name is our sole source of contentment as we forget ourselves and all else besides. We delight in you as though delight itself was invented for just this one thing, and we delight in how others love you as well. You live within us and around us, and all we want to do is remember you every moment, say your name with every breath, and between all breaths also. Your remembrance brings inner sweetness to all things, brings reality to our joys, brings reality to our sufferings. And it's no wonder your name is ever on our lips and ringing in our hearts. They say that mankind looks to the angels for help. But when you recline in the enclave of your lovers, it is the angels themselves who envy mankind. Saints sit in every corner of creation, but when the Lord and his lovers are gathered at feast, every saint and their mothers would beg trade their disciplines for a seat at that table and a seat near your hand. Beloved, I am in awe of your lovers, and even more am I in awe of your love and care for each one. You are the creator and sustainer of all life and all love, Baba, and the destroyer of all that stands between you and any heart. There is not a person in this world, not a woman or a man, who can create even one lover like this. And you have created thousands of them, the like of which the world has never seen. Real lovers created from the most ordinary of people, people who do not see the constant, unhidden, and unblemished face of God night and day, but who live and breathe as though they do in their love for you. That's all of you guys. I'd like to share another story, excuse me, also from my first trip to India. And I'm sure those of you who have been there have many memories, and sometimes all the trips can blend in together so you don't remember which visit, which memory comes from. Some memories I remember specifically which visits they came from, and this is from my first visit to Maharazad. I was on the veranda of Maharazad. It was a beautiful hot day. It was in September 1975. It was during the time of the elephant rains. This is the rains that come after the monsoons. And for those who are unfamiliar with the term, elephant rains means the skies are clear, but there are these there are these intensely dark rain clouds that are moving slowly across the sky that look like elephants because the rain is just pouring down from them. So you have these dark clouds, and the rain coming down looks almost like the elephant's legs as it's moving across the sky, because down towards the ground, the rain is bent. So anyway, they call them elephant rains. And so it's at that time, and this is my first visit to Maharazad. And I have to tell you, I was in kind of a state. I had already seen Mehera for about an hour, and I was sort of delirious with joy without being delirious. And I was feeling like, I don't know, not thinking, not feeling, but just experiencing, this is something better than paradise. How could paradise even compare to this? How could it compare? This is not just the home of the God-man, but he's accepted me into his home. How do you even begin to describe the feeling of what that is? So I was standing on the veranda, and the elephant rain now is passing over Maharazad itself. So as I'm looking out, the sky is beautiful, brilliant, sunny sky, and the rain is pouring down onto the roof of the veranda. And the water is pouring off the roof of the veranda. And it's actually heightening my feeling of being literally in something like more than paradise. And I started to think, oh my God, these are the living waters of Meherazad. And I went over to where that clay, I forget what, maybe one of you knows the name of it, those black clay pots that hold the water, that keep it cool even in the hot summers. And they have a zipper that you go in to get the water, and a number of cups around the pot. And everybody drinks from the same cups without touching the cups. So I take one of the cups, and instead of going for the water that's in this holder, I'm looking at the one, I'm thinking, these are the living water, the living waters of Meherazad. It's the rain, it's coming down at Meherazad. And I took a cup and I hold it out so that the rain that's pouring off the roof is now filling up the cup. And I take the cup, and I was just about to bring it to my mouth, and I felt this incredibly strong hand and arm grab my forearm. And I turn around to see who is grabbing me out of my reverie. And it's Erich standing there. And he says to me, "Brother, what are you doing?" And I said to him, "Well, it's the rain here at Meherazad." And I just, I couldn't even finish the sentence because he divined what I was thinking. And he says, "Brother, you don't want to drink that. That's coming off the roof. The birds shit up there, and the lizards shit up there, and it's poisonous. It's not healthy at all." Hold on, Matt, could you get that door? Sure. Thanks. He says it's not healthy at all. Meanwhile, he's motioned for one of the servants to come and pry the cup out of my hand and go, I don't know, wash it or destroy it or something. And he says, "Why don't you have some of the water we keep here in the pot? This is also the water of Meherazad. It's much better, I promise." And I realized that he probably saved my life in that moment. And so I'm still here to talk to you and to Father, my son, because I didn't drink the living waters that were pouring off the roof at Meherazad filled with lizard shit. And for those of you who know, the shit of those lizards will kill you in about 30 minutes, and there's no known cure. So that was when I first went to Meherazad. And with that, we will end with something brief. Friends, there isn't one among us who does not think they have substance. We all think we are strong somehow, even when we know of all our weaknesses. But listen, my brother, my sister, the dear friends of my heart, there is not one among us who, when the Lord of the world walks by, does not turn into sweet water. Jai Bob. Jai Bob. Thank you. And good night.
Thank you, Eric. That was delightful. Feel free to unmute your mics if you would like to ask Eric a question or make a comment. I'd like to make a comment. I was at the Sorbonne in Paris, and they were having a display of altars from the 13th and 14th century with Mary Magdalene in the altars. It's a Mary Magdalene exhibit of sacred images of her. And you know how it is, you're somewhere in a museum and you're just having a nice day and you're taking it all in, and suddenly you have this epiphany. And I had this overwhelming realization that Mary Magdalene was the reflection of Christ's
Yeah.
love in the same way that Mara is a reflection of Baba's love, and that both of those women were vital to both of those people's missions. And without them, they could not have done what they did, because they needed the love reflected back to them that they were putting out into the world. And it was just one of those really profoundly beautiful moments where I just felt so grateful for anyone's ability to reflect love back to another human being, and in particular, of course, these sacred relationships that we're so fortunate to know about.
Great
So,
experience, great
yeah.
experience. And like most things, connected with historical appearances of God,
Yeah.
History got it wrong. It was Magdalena, not his mother. And knowing Baba and his life is simpler for us to look at Jesus's life and see how Jesus's mother was actually so much like Baba's own mother, at times making his life very challenging, like at that wedding. And she says, "They're out of wine. Turn that barrel of water into wine." He says, "Mom, please don't ask me to do this. Please don't ask me to do this." And she said, "Jesus," well, actually his name is Yeshua. "Yeshua, turn it into wine. Do it," So, and how easy it is to understand that in that tableau that we've seen with Shireen Mai and Baba, how she would take liberties. And of course, that's not to diminish his mother's role at all. Baba said it's an almost impossible life. And he had nothing but reverence and love for his mother. But there was Magdalena, Miriam, who was Mehera of that time.
Eric, as usual, I enjoyed your poetry, and hearing you speak them is even more beautiful. Can you hear me?
I am very happy you get anything of Baba from it for us there.
Absolutely. And if I was a thief, which I'm not, I would steal that line, which says, "The endless alm of your name." What a beautiful phrase. A lot of your words are very potent and powerful, and if nothing else, I one like it really is what, when you say it, it is, and I got that. It's beautiful. Thank you.
All I can say is I'm glad you get something from it.
Thank you.
I'd like to. I wrote down a whole bunch of stuff that I can't read. I took notes, but I can't read it. But I can read one phrase that I wrote. "Your heart, a great white fire."
Mm.
And that was so memorable. I've never heard that before, but it said, I don't know exactly what it says, but it says so much.
Mm.
And a lot of the things that you say are kind of like that. And you're sort of this unassuming personality, and you convey a someone who walks with God, basically. And we can all
my son is laughing.
and aspire to it. Well, anyway. Okay.
Thank you.
I think that he assumes far too much sometimes, actually, but maybe that's neither here nor there. Dad, I was hoping you could tell the story of our interaction in the car trying to visit Steve and Daphne, and you asking me if it's safe to drink the water from a nearby stream.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we were.
Apparently, that the story continued. Go on.
No, finish what you were saying, because otherwise I won't know what to say.
No, I was just gonna to poke fun at you a little bit.
Oh, good. Thank you.
I think I'm the only one here that will.
I don't think so. You should get most people I know will have more poking than praise. But
I think,
Jeremy and I love to go visit with Steve and Doug Klein up in New Hampshire. And, I've been going upstate New York and to places up in the Northeast really my whole life. And I've always been fascinated by streams and brooks and running water. And of course, as a person who grew up when we have, at this point, I wonder, where is it even possible anymore to drink water that's just flowing in the ground? Because this is what our ancestors did not all that long ago. And Jeremy said, who this is actually part of his area of expertise, because we were up in New Hampshire, we're not close to anything. We weren't even close to a farm where there might be runoff. At least I didn't think so, but you know, I'm ignorant as hell. And you know, I'm looking at what appears to be essentially a really out of the way little stream. And it's not a very big thing. It's not even something you would think of as a tributary. It's a brook, you know? And I said to Jeremy, I wonder, you know, certainly this must be one of those places where you could drink the water. And he says, I wouldn't do it if I were you. I said, really? How could there be any pollution from this? And he says, well, you know, there's probably going to be a farm runoff from it somewhere. Plus there's animals. You know, animals are always, everything that they do goes into the water, in a water table, and it comes into these streams. And he says, our bodies at this point are no longer constructed in a way where we can drink this kind of water and be immune to the bacteria that our ancestors were maybe 100 years ago, you know, only 100 years ago. So not just the quote unquote water pouring off, the living water pouring off the roof with the lizard shit would have killed me, but even just drinking what appears to be a pristine stream up there and out of the way, you know, Podunk, New Hampshire would have killed us as well. So there you go.
Well, I'm grateful for your restraint.
Thank you. Thank you. Me too.
When you were telling that story about airage, it occurred to me that airage has probably saved a whole lot of people's lives a whole lot of times.
I don't know if anything quite that bizarre, you know, I was sort of in a fanciful mind, you know, it's like I had no real concrete idea of what Baba's life was yet, Baba's physical life among men, among women, with his Mandali, with his lovers. And it was something almost, I didn't feel it was fanciful at the time, but it was like, I was just transported thinking that it was something other than what it was. It was actually, I remember the first time I went into Mansari's kitchen, which she corrected me and says, no, it's Baba's kitchen. But we, of course, we all knew it as Mansari's kitchen, but that was only because that's where she was. Anyway, when I first went into Mansari's kitchen, I saw that there was a wasp's nest attached to the ceiling near the window, the transom window over the sink. So there were wasps flying in and out of the kitchen. There were birds had built a nest also above the transom, and there were birds flying. Now birds are okay, but wasps, you know, we're not used to living in close quarters with wasps. So there are birds flying in and out of her kitchen also. There are dogs asleep on the floor, and they're outside the doorway. Goats are walking back and forth on top of Maribad Hill, and there are also cows and water buffaloes walking by her door. And I tell you, in that moment, I was thinking, well, this is it. This really is the lion lies down with the lamb. I've walked into not just a painting of paradise, I've walked into real, I was not in that frame of mind I was in at Meherazad, where I was sort of transported. This was very mundane. And I felt like it was the wasps that did it. You know, I really felt like this is it. This is paradise. This is what's going to happen to the world, you know. foolish of me to think that, but nevertheless, that was the feeling at the time with the water buffaloes and the wasps and the birds and Mansari puttering around. It was a remarkable experience.
In a way, we got a little taste of that early days of the pandemic. I don't know if any of you were able to go outside, but there was something special going on the first couple of weeks. The air was getting pure, the animals were walking around, the birds were flying and singing, and it was just a big party. Nature just threw a party saying, oh my God, that animal, human animal has gone to bed for a while, let's party. So
It is inconceivable that something like this could have happened, because on our own, we would never have allowed something like that. Can I say hello to Prakash there? Are you there, Prakash?
Jai Baba.
Hello, Prakash.
Sally is also here, and I'm listening to your beautiful story about Mansari. And it's so beautiful. I mean, you know, being with everything around, you know, being with the nature. And like just now, Farishta spoke. I mean, we have given some good time to for the consciousness of all the animal kingdom to just flourish. And I guess that's the opportunity that Baba gave them, keeping us quarantined, I guess. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, please give my love to Sailaja.
Jai Baba.
And Carol, I'll say hello to you also. Haven't seen you in a long time. I think about you from time to time, hoping you're well, if you're there.
Yeah, I'm out at my poetry walk again, and I forgot about the poetry again, and I'm sorry I missed the first half an hour of this, but it's just so wonderful to hear your stories. It brought back, I wasn't there as early as you, but brought back Mirazad in the earlier days.
You were there pretty early. I remember you.
It was just, it's fantastic, and I love your poetry.
I'm glad.
And I am one of those who pokes, but I also praise. And you know I poke because I've poked you.
Yeah, I know. Thank you. I appreciate the pokes.
But you know, pokes can also come from love at times. Not always from me, but they are from love. And
you know, a friend of mine who shall remain nameless pokes me all the time. He says things all the time to me, and I said, Steve, you know, well, in any event, I said, I can't even remember what I said. I said, what do other people do when you talk to them like this? And he says, I don't talk to anybody like this. I only talk to you like this. I can't talk to anybody like this. If I talk to them, they wouldn't be my friend.
yeah, well.
Anyway.
I can make some remarks about that, but not in public. So I'll tell you later.
Well, you'll tell me next time you see me.
Yes.
Okay. Very good.
Thank you for doing this. And thank you again,
My pleasure.
Tracey, for hosting this and doing this. Really appreciate it.
Delighted to be doing it. I remember once when I was at the center, I was sitting on a bench out in the woods, and a raccoon walked by me in the middle of the day. I mean, literally, like, 5 or 6 feet away from me, and he just looked at me like, we're all good here. I just thought, only at the center would you see a wild animal walk past you so calmly and really not be afraid and not be alarmed. And it was really great. It was a little bit like what you're describing, that feeling of, something special is happening here and the animals can feel it. And
well, the center, there's no doubt. I mean, there's no doubt at the center. Look, every blade of grass, every grain of sand on the center is getting what we're getting. And since we know from Baba that really, it's not so much, what is alive and what is dead anyway? It's not about that. It's about consciousness. So even the grass feels something of what Baba is giving at the center, which is unlike any place else, the refreshment that he's giving there. And the animals, they're absorbing something. And even though it is their home and it is the wild, nevertheless, they do seem to be at ease around people there in a way that, you know, living in New York as I did all my life, the pigeons there, which are a form of dove, actually, they are, unlike most wild animals in their natural habitat, in that these pigeons, these doves, they are so comfortable around people that even when a car goes by, they don't even fly away. They just sort of move a foot out of the way so the car can go by. It's unimaginable that an animal in its own environment would live without fear. And the animals of Meher Center, while they don't live totally without fear, the deer will run away, and like that. Nevertheless, the animals at Meher Center do seem like there is something in between being tame and being wild. And it's not like they have a ton of people. I think it's because of what they absorb from Baba here. Whatever it is, you know. The alligators, sometimes you have baby alligators come up onto that little landing at the boathouse, and they'll just sit there while people are in the boathouse. I mean, it's absurd on the face of it when you think about it. Why would they even feel comfortable enough to do that? But they do. Go figure.
I have a story that sort of involves, well, it does involve animals. It also, at the center. One time I went outside of the original kitchen and I sat on that bench, that big wooden bench to the right of the kitchen.
Oh,
And this was like 25 years ago, and I was a young man then. But I felt that I sat where there were like two, I don't know if they were mosquitoes or gnats or what. And I ended up, because of the way I sat down, I separated them. And I felt they would never see each other again.
Oh, those poor gnats.
And I had broken up a family. I was like, oh, and I went to see Kitty about it. And Kitty, she didn't say you're crazy or anything. Can anybody guess what she said? She said, oh, they'll be together in their next life.
Yeah. Well, you know, Kitty learned from Baba how to indulge people. Nobody indulged people like Baba did. And his close ones definitely learn how to have patience with us and how to indulge us. And it's something that I hope we all learn also, how to indulge people with patience and love. And, you know, it's interesting. In Manzalamim, Baba would actually have the men, one of their assignments was to kill 30 mosquitoes a day, and they had to present the bodies to him so he could count them to make sure that they were, you know, up to spec, because if they didn't kill all 30, they were disobeying orders, and then they had to go get some more. So if you were in Manzalamim, if you were lucky enough, Max, then you would have had to kill those gnats and say, Baba here.
Anybody else want to share something before we close out?
I just want to thank you, Eric. It was great. I'm late for another meeting, but I didn't want to leave, but I'm going to leave now. But thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Robin.
Robin, thanks everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Eric, it was a bomb.
Jay.
A bomb on the spirit. Thank you. Much needed.
The recording of this will be on Robin Vogel's YouTube page. You can just Google her, and then you'll be able to see these again or share them with someone if you'd like to. So that's where they are.
Jai Baba.
Yeah.
Hey, Baba.
Thanks, Tracy.
From one writer to another, it was really beautiful to
Yep.
validate it again and again and again and again.